Welcome back to On Deck Circle Podcast. I am your poorly lit host, Nick Z. I'm here in my brand new apartment, but been about a month, and I didn't even think where I would record the podcast. And this is the least ideal situation I've ever been in. My dog is asleep. My wife also asleep. So I am tucked away in the office. But we are back. I'm excited to have a wonderful guest today that Jason reached out to our guy, Tyler Jennings. Tyler, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on.
Fantastic. Jason and Tyler. So, Tyler, we start the show off with a cold open question of the week. It has absolutely nothing to do with baseball. Usually, it's something that's just going on in my life, so it's kind of selfish of me. But anyway, my question is, next Saturday, I go to Italy. For 2 weeks, I'm going to Italy, Greece, and Croatia for the next 15 days for our year later honeymoon. I just want to know if you guys have ever been to a foreign country. If so, which has been your favorite? All right, ready, set, play the music. Alrighty, so let's start with the guest today. So, Tyler, what do you got for me?
So I've only been out of the country once, and it was for the Bahamas. So I'm kind of stuck having to do that. But it was like Margaritaville. Did an ATV tour of one of the islands down there. I think it was like Grand Turk. I do believe so. Got to do some shopping in Nassau. Like it was a blast to do, and hoping I get to do it again. But it's at some point I want to travel to Europe or like at least go to Asia or something. Just knock it off the bucket list.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And I really want to go to Japan to watch wrestling. That's something that I really want to get off of my bucket list. Jason?
Man, you're just teasing me with this Italy trip because one of my bucket list items is go to Italy. But been to quite a few countries here. Let's see, I've been to Canada, Mexico. What's that, like the joint countries of the United States? But I've also been to Jamaica and Ireland. I've been to the old motherland. And
did you kiss the stone there?
I did not. That's a little gross for me, but I give it a good rub. And
yeah.
But I think I got to go. It's easy to say Ireland because it's probably the most exotic, but I'm gonna go Jamaica. I feel like really good. A lot of jerk chicken.
We're rubbing and jerking.
Those are what my vacations usually exist of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're not going to talk about Reese McGuire today. Just to bring it back to baseball.
Exactly. Plus, Joe's in the building, so we got to keep it PC. What's
Joe,
up, Joe?
I'm sorry about my lighting. I'm well aware.
All right, well, yeah, this week I'm super excited. We got Tyler Jennings. Why don't you go ahead and take a couple minutes here and introduce yourself, let people know what you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the name's Tyler. It's already been covered like 3 times, but I'm the director of amateur scouting over at Prospects Live. So we do a lot of stuff with the draft, high school, college side, and just glad to have the 2024 class over. Really, we've been working on some best of, worst of draft stuff and takes from our content writers. And I'm still myself working on film from the 2024 spring because I go out every weekend to the scout. And then, of course, came back from the draft, did the 2025 high schoolers. So there's a lot going on right now. We already put up like lists for 2025 college side. We're working on the prep list now and hoping that will be out in the next couple of weeks. But I've got a psychology final due this weekend. So that's going to take priority first.
Yeah. You guys, a lot of things going on. So were you boots on the ground there in Arlington for the draft or what?
Yeah, so we were actually at the Futures game. It was me, Jared Perkins, Greg Hoopcamp, and Drew Wheeler. All four of us went. But unfortunately, we did not get credentials to go to the draft itself since it was separate from what we had.
Sure.
But we still did. I think it was like a 3.5 hour stream on our YouTube, Twitter, all that. One of the funnest things I've ever done in my life. Honestly, we raked out an Airbnb and just recorded with. I think we had Devin Mesoraco on the guy that does 64 analytics for anybody on the college side, Jason Ratcliffe, super cool dude. Love the stuff that he does. And we also have Greg Zumak from Northside Cubs, I think is the name of the site. So having those guys on was a blast, and could not have been happier with how everything turned out for that.
That's awesome, man. I know you got to see my boy James Triantos in the Futures game, and I saw Nick had a couple. One thing you know about the On Deck Circles, we got a little bit of homerism in this pod. And I'm from Chicago, and Nick from Boston, so you're gonna, if you see some questions maybe skewed towards those two organizations, you might know why.
I'm fine with it. I got a Cubs baseball right here, and I'm a Red Sox fan myself. So
there we go.
Look at that.
Let's go.
How's it going, Nick? Go Sox.
Sox, kid.
Yeah,
exactly. I wish I had my mask. So Tyler, so there's a segment in the show. If I talk about the Red Sox, I have this Red Sox luchador mask. And I just throw it right on. And it's just like my alter ego. We could not come up with an appropriate name for said alter ego. So if you have any suggestions, you just let me know.
Just don't name it after Reese McGuire after today.
Yeah.
Dude, that was so good. And like, if it's Cal Quantrill giving you shit, like, you're fucked. Like,
that education really came in handy there.
I mean, yeah, that was a level 10 burn.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was totally. Oh, actually, before we get started, I just want to share, Tyler, I was boots on the ground at a Portland Sea Dogs game 2 weeks ago, the 4th of July week. Was just walking around the concessions. Marcelo Meyer just walked behind me.
I forgot to put that.
Then I actually thought
in the pod. He's
like close to my height. I'm like 6'3". I was very impressed with Marcelo Meyer's height, and that he took a picture with him. There it is. There's me and Marcelo.
There we go.
I meant to put it on the pod. I completely forgot.
Yeah, I was just like, "Hey, can we get a picture?" He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "All right."
This is exactly how I picture Marcelo Meyer's voice to be too.
Exactly.
Oh, yes, like I said, we're going to talk about the MLB draft, get a little bit of recap here from Tyler's aspect of things. Before we do so, we got to jump into a little bit of business here. Do you want to get access to the most accurate fantasy baseball rankings according to Fantasy Pros? Right now, we got our FYPD rankings up there now. If you want to get access to those rankings and more, you got to become an all-access member. You can do so by becoming a member at fantasysixpack.net/plans. Atop from the FYPD rankings, we got a ton of stuff. I know football season's right around the corner. Draft season's right around the corner. Get access to all those great rankings and articles that the all-access members get. I don't know. We got our Discord. Our Discord right now is jumping off. It's every time I turn on my phone, there's 100 different pings about mostly football right now. But if you want to get access to that stuff right now, just become a member now. So, all right, that's the business side of things. Let's just jump right into this here. I know we got a couple questions here we got to get through here. None of them pertaining to the Red Sox, Nick, just yet. But I think we'll start off maybe with like a high overhead view, and maybe just talk about which team in your eyes do you think did a really good job, not just with maybe the first round, but just an overall draft class on who do you think really stood out, made themselves a better organization at the draft?
So the first thing that pops to my mind is the way Cleveland utilized their entire draft. They obviously had the most pool money, but they played everything perfectly with, taking Bazzana at 1. But I really liked what they did in the comp round in the 3rd round. Getting Braden Dowdy where he was at the comp round, we had him as like a back end first round kind of guy. And then you start day 2 off with Joe Yoki falling into your lap at 84, and Joe Yoki was a guy we had a comp round grade on going into the draft. Like, really, really good 2-pitch mix out of Iowa. Could start, could be a reliever, but it's a high octane high school arm. It's going to command a bit of money. But that's how you kind of expect most preps to be at this point. But then they kind of keep it going too. Like Cam Sullivan in the 7th round was a guy that we had like a 3rd round grade on. Chase Mobley was a top 100 prospect coming into this and got taken in the 10th round. So waiting to see kind of how Cleveland plays their money here. They've gotten a significant pay cut with Bazzana at 1 at $8.95 million. So that's about like $1.5 million under. So I think they should have enough money to get everybody signed. If not, I wouldn't be shocked if one of the day 3 guys gets left off. But having those 3 high school arms, or 4 rather, if they get them all signed, that's a haul for an organization that knows pitching in and out.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really liked what they did. Mobley for sure. That was one of the things I was going to bring up with you is, do you foresee a situation? I know they saved, like I said, a couple mil on Bazzana, but probably allocate that towards Mobley. But do you think that he's one of those, like a day 3 guy that may not be able to be signed, or do you think signs point towards him signing?
I feel like if you're taking him in the 10th round, you're pretty positive that you have a chance to sign him. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it would just kind of be a weird pick to make overall. I'm not sure what the number could be. It could be somewhere towards like 2 mil, maybe slightly more, because this is a guy that was expecting to get at least back end 2nd, 3rd round money, which is going to come in around like the mil plus range. But with him, Cam Sullivan, there's going to be money that they need to spread around, and if they can find a way to do it, hats off to them. That's the best draft of the entire scene here. But I'm expecting something like 2 mil, considering the bonuses we've already seen, like Trey for getting 2 mil basically in the 11th round. And that kind of hampered the Angels draft too now, because they've lost Ryan Prager, who was their 3rd rounder this year, who's a victim of the bonus pool at this point. Yeah, no, for sure. I actually, personally, I mean, it pains me to say this, but I also really liked what the Pirates did. Getting a guy like, Connor Griffin in the 1st, and then following it up with Sanford in the 3rd, late 2nd. And then even Matt Agar in the 6th round I thought was a really good signing. But and they've actually, allocated a lot of their pool money, fairly well at the back end of the draft, but still waiting on those, first three picks. But again, someone that's in the NL Central, it always pains me to. But don't worry, they'll trade all those pitchers away at some point, and
exactly.
we don't have to worry about that. So.
No, yeah, I'm with you. I do like what the Pirates did. Even Levi Sterling too with the comp round pick. I like Levi Sterling a lot, and he really impressed in my live looks last year. So, kind of glad that he's with an organization that's on the rise with their development program. Like the Pirates have been sneaky good for the past couple of years, and now Paul Skeens has kind of given them that mold that they've worked with, and has really put them onto the next step in the development scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll just kind of transition from there, talking about the Pirates here. With the success of Skeens going, 1-1 last year, and even that immediate impact this year, and actually really just accelerating his, not only just his prospect status, but his actual MLB status, and becoming basically one of probably a top. We talked about this last week, Nick. Either top 1 or top 2 dynasty assets, pitcher wise. Would that make you more willing? I know, a lot of the thing is with the dynasty community is, fade pitchers. Don't draft the pitchers high in your fantasy drafts, in the dynasty drafts, just because you can usually get a lot of value there at the end of the rounds. But would a guy like with Skeens, I know he's like almost a unicorn, but we got Chase Burns going 2nd overall. Is that something that would make you push up that draft stock?
I think it varies year by year for me personally, because pitching is just so volatile year in and year out. Like I came into last year thinking, okay, Paul Skeens is throwing, he's basically sitting 99-100 at LSU. How much longer is he going to be able to do that? And I think Chase Burns falls under that same kind of demographic where I'm a little worried that if there's any sort of velocity drop within the next couple of years, the stuff's going to go with it. But you kind of look at it this year, like Burns is kind of on that same Skeens trajectory where he's got 3 above average pitches. The changeup's kind of like that 4th pitch that's there. He kind of utilizes it for strikes, but it's not like anything more than average. So I'm kind of interested to see what Cincinnati does there. Do they add kind of like that splinker that Skeens has, that has basically just turned his entire profile around? Or do they kind of just continue to develop the 3 pitches that he already has, maybe see what happens from there and let the changeup kind of just be that, like, not non-existent, but like nascent fourth pitch that kind of just like how it was used this year. But I think it just really, like I said, depends on the draft class. Like last year was downright one of the best drafts in the past decade, maybe even more. And this year was down. Kind of looking at who we had, like him, Hagen Smith, and you can even throw Yesavage in there. Like those 3 guys were the clear top 3 coming into it for me at least. And they're just not as talented as what Paul Skeens was coming into last year. Chase Burns is probably the closest. Hagen's got an interesting profile from the left side, but then he's kind of look after Yesavage, like Brody Breck's in that mix, Cijntje's in that mix. It kind of falls off a little bit after the top 3, and it's not quite as good as what we had last year.
For sure. And were you shocked that they Burns went second over like guys like Caglione and Condon, and then not only that, but Cincinnati following up their pick last year, Brett Lauder, and pairing him up with his another Wake Forest alum here with Burns.
Yeah, there's going to be a Wake Forest pipeline, I think, now. But it was a little shocking. I wasn't expecting it. I think we had Condon at 2 on our mock draft going into it. But overall, like it makes sense. The Reds do know pitching in and out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the highest upside arm of anybody in this class. So I like the pick as a whole. And he's got it was somewhere over $9 million this year. It was one of the largest signing bonuses ever. But there's obviously bigger risk there considering the kind of effort and recoil on delivery. There are some strike concerns as well with some scouts, and the fastball didn't really play up to what it was at the beginning of the year down the stretch. So again, I'm very interested to see what Cincy does with that, but shocked is probably the best answer to put it, but I do still like the pick.
Yeah. So when you look over like, the whole first round as a whole, do you see any team that maybe, went a little bit above and reached for a player that maybe you didn't see right there? And that's not just necessarily a Burns thing. It could be anywhere, even later in the first round.
Yeah, so the biggest one for me is Dante Nori, the Phillies pick at 27. I was not expecting that whatsoever. And kind of just like having seen Nori in the past, it's a very old prepster that it's not really model friendly. And it's a maxed out frame 5'11", 190 that it's a hit over power with good speed, but I've spent time kind of wondering, like, how much more can you squeeze out of a profile like that from a scouting standpoint? And it's really tough to kind of find that piece to it because there's not a ton of power projection to it. This is kind of basically what you've drafted is what you're going to have at the next level. So we had him as like a 4th or 5th round grade on our board coming into the draft, and definitely was the shock of the first round for me. I was not anticipating Dante being there, and I thought he may have even just gone to school considering his age. He was over 19 and a half years old for a high schooler. That's really, really old. So he's definitely the reach of the first round for me, and it makes more sense now with Burkholder in second, but I just feel like you could have gone with maybe like Slade Caldwell or something at 27 and saved a bit. Mm-hmm. Either get like a similar number or save a bit more and go from there.
Yeah, one of the ones that this may be maybe it's cliche or not, but like the Cijntje or the Cijntje, the switch pitcher, I feel like was a little bit of reach, and maybe that's why he was, maybe reached that was because of the switch pitcher. Just to me, that kind of just screams reliever, right? I don't really know where else you can really high leverage a switch pitcher other than, out of the pen. And I don't even know technically how this works. Like, can he switch in the middle of an at bat if you wanted to? I don't even know what's the possibilities of a switch pitcher other than, the handedness of a batter as they switch, especially with this new minimum 3 batter rule. I mean, that could be deadly come like, if he turns into a high leverage arm, but I felt like he was a bit of a reach for Seattle. But again, I think it's more of that because it was a cliche. I mean, what do you think about the Cijntje pick?
Yeah, so I actually kind of like it. He had a lot of healing coming up, and he kind of really did ditch switch pitching this year. He only had thrown like 120 pitches as a lefty after the season. He really just focused on being a righty, and that's where a lot of the upside is gets up to 98, flashes of a plus slider in the upper 80s, and a good curveball changeup to go with it. Really athletic. I really like what he has from the right side. I think that's why he went higher, is that teams are kind of expecting to make him switch pitching at the next level. I think it's kind of gotten past the point of it being a gimmick where it kind of does hamper him a bit, where the upside from the right side is just way more advanced than what you get from the left side. Like left side is just like a low 90s, tops out 94 with a decent breaking ball, where the right side is up to 98 with swing and miss on the fastball and the slider, and he's got 4 total pitches there. Like I think overall, do I think he was the third arm off the board? No, I thought Yesavage was the better than him, but he had the case to be the 4th best arm in the class on the college side. So for me, it made sense for Cijntje to kind of be taken that high, and he fits well in that Mariners development system.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, with there's reaches, there's going to be some players that fall as well. And which some of the guys that you saw is maybe the first round steal, and why is it Braden Montgomery? I'm just kidding.
I mean, Braden's number 2 on my list, actually, but number 1 is Yesavage. I loved Yesavage coming into the year. Thought he had a very good case to be one of the best arms in the class, and I saw him. It was like the 3rd week of the season in the Clark LeClaire Classic they have at ECU. He went 8 shutout. I think it was 2 hits, 2 walks, 11 strikeouts against a pretty good Purdue lineup. And it flashes of 3 above average or better pitches. I thought the slider and the splitter, which took a really big jump this year, I thought they were both plus. And he did lose some velocity later on, and there's some questions medically, and that might be why he fell a little bit. I heard some teams were kind of concerned about the back and how it might be a ticking time bomb moving forward. Whether or not that's true, I'm not sure, but it was a rumor going around that was a possibility. And kind of just looking around, like, if you're Toronto, who has issues keeping arms healthy, that might be a bit of a red flag, but you take the upside right there and go with it. Like 3 above average to plus pitches with above average command. There's also a curveball in there that he can utilize late in outings to get guys off the fastball. I think he's the biggest steal of the first round for me, and I wouldn't be shocked if he succeeds in that Toronto system.
Nice, love it. A couple names that I kind of top of my list. There's some guys that maybe you can check on what I got here, and that's it's a little bit more in the top 10, but seeing Westerholt fall to the Cardinals also pains me, for one, because I'm a Cubs fan, and 2, I mean, I thought I heard rumors leading up to the draft that there was a possibility that he could go 1, if not 2, and then to see him fall all the way down to 7 was a little bit of a shock. I mean, it's hard to for top 10 is pretty subjective, right? It could be team need or teams view these prospects a little bit differently, but I thought that was really good value for the Cardinals, and that's just the kind of guy that the Cardinals are going to take and run with and just turn into just an all-around great baseball player, and it pains me to say that. And another guy, too, is, Cam Caminiti, just going to Atlanta. This is a team that I know that they fast-track a lot of their pitching prospects, and they've been brought up as like a good developing for the pitching prospects. So I think him falling to them is also a really good landing spot and a really good draft value in the first round for them as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think Caminiti falling that far, given the age, given the kind of stuff from the left side, I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in that Brave system. And they draft perfectly to their strength, and it's definitely been pitching recently. Like AJ Smith-Shawver, I know he's not had the greatest MLB time so far, but he's a guy with high upside. So I really do like what they have. Like Owen Murphy's on the way up. Waldrop's, admittedly had some struggles, but he's still got high ceiling. So I do like what Atlanta's done here.
Yeah, and then like I said, just the fast track. Like they already, Waldrop's already been up. AJ Smith-Shawver's been up. They've always been a team that not only developed pretty well, but they just fast track these pitchers. And granted, Waldrop has still got that command issue, but he's already made his debut at just almost a little over less than a year of being drafted. So not only do they develop pretty well, but they fast track these guys as well. So that's someone that obviously look at going forward as Caminiti. Speaking of MLB contributors, when you look at not even just the first round, but just maybe like the first, even just like I mean, any round, honestly. What's the guy that stands out to you that might, come up, not only maybe at some point, if possibly this year, if not next year, maybe start making an MLB impact?
Yeah, so obviously it's going to have to be an Angels pitcher, because that's all they do. They just backtrack everybody. But I'm not going to go with Christian Moore because I feel like he needs a bit more seasoning for me at least. Like just testing the waters in the minors. Maybe start him at AA, but don't fast track him. Don't do a Shanuel. But Ryan Johnson out of DBU, I think it was a Comp B pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a guy that could fast track pretty quickly. He's already been up to 100 with it's more of a sinker, but he throws strikes, and the slider and the cutter both really project as really good pitches. I think the slider I had as plus last year when I saw him. Really fills up, like I said, really fills up the strike zone. Really does need like a third pitch. He's got that cutter as a grid pitch, but the changeup really isn't all that great. But he just fits the mold of the Angels are going to have him in the bullpen by end of the year, and then he'll probably start for them coming out of the spring if everything works out well. He just felt like one of the more MLB ready arms in this class, and I think the Angels are definitely going to get him up there as quick as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. If it's one thing the Angels have a type, and that's pitchers. I don't remember what year it was. A couple years ago when they drafted nothing but pitchers. This
Every
year,
single one was a pitcher. Yeah.
Yeah. 7 of their first 10 this year were pitchers. So the Angels definitely have a type, and it's definitely pitching.
Yeah, I just wish they would switch up their strategy for once, please, guys. Because it really does suck watching the Angels kind of struggle the way that they are now, and we'll see what happens. But I'm not. They're kind of Zach Neto up there. That's my boy. Please don't ruin him. Please don't ruin him.
Yeah, you're right. They have really been fast tracking a lot of other guys. Chanel last year, Neto, even Reed Detmers to an extent was a little bit fast tracked, and it had that upside and just cannot really hone all in that consistency. But yeah, hopefully they can figure that situation out there in that organization. Let's jump over here now to maybe a player that you might be a little bit higher on than most people out there that the rankings and such.
Yeah, so first one that comes to my mind, I'm sticking with the Tennessee theme since I mentioned SEMO, but Dylan Dreiling, their kind of left field, do-it-all outfielder, he came into the year, we were kind of wondering if he's like a platoon bat because he really struggled with lefties last year in a small sample size, didn't do well, came out in the fall, started hammering lefties, and then this year just completely flipped the narrative. He really excelled against lefties, hit something like a 400 clip against them this year. And I think even down the stretch, like he homered in all 3 College World Series games off of lefties. And he was hitting 600 in the tournament off of lefties alone. So I'm a big fan of him overall. I think he might admittedly just be a left fielder. I don't think he's really a big burner on the base pass with speed and whatnot. But you're looking at a guy that has the feel to hit, has a pretty good approach, has the pull side power to make everything work. I think we had him as a comp round pick coming in. And I was even tempted to even put like a first round grade on him. I thought he did a really excellent job of turning everything around this year. But I know some people had him down towards like a third round draft pick or kind of where he was at the second round where he got drafted. But he's the guy that I really did enjoy watching this year. And I'm really glad he flipped the narrative on being able to hit lefties because that ditching that platoon split was the biggest thing for his profile.
Awesome, man. I love that. It's like one of those names that I didn't even think about, and when you bring somebody up like that, it's super fun to hear. What about a guy that might be a little bit lower on than everybody else?
Tommy White. And I'm not saying this because like we mentioned it before the show. I'm an NC State fan. I'm not saying that because he ditched us to go to LSU and then win a ring, but kind of just looking at the overall profile, it's kind of a clunky body. May not be a third base type, could be a first baseman. So there's not really a ton of defensive value there if he moves to first base. And I think we might overhype the bat a little bit. It's a really good bat to ball skills, but the chase rate kind of does scare me a little bit. And that's something I really value in evaluations is like the chase rate. How bad is that going to be projecting wise? Because if you get to AA and you're still chasing everything, facing advanced stuff is going to hamper your value a lot more. I think Caglianone falls into that same thing where he's really aggressive, doesn't really walk a ton, and he chases a lot. So I'm kind of worried about how that projects on the hit tool for Tommy White. And I've seen people put plus power on Tommy White. I think it's probably above average at best. I don't think there's the gaudy exit velocities this year. He also doesn't really pull the ball that well. So for me, I kind of just don't see it. And I'm sure somebody will argue it, but for me, like watching him be a bat first baseman with not a ton of value, you got to have a lot of pressure on the bat to perform. I think it's going to be a tough situation for him if there's not a adjustment with the approach in terms of staying in the zone and not expanding to try and chase all the secondary pitches.
Yeah, and I feel like just him going to that awful organization that is Oakland.
Exactly. Just don't trust any A.
I feel bad for both him and Kurtz. It's hard to like pick on an organization, and you want to down these guys too much, but I mean this is it couldn't be a worse landing spot for both of those guys, and I wish the best for them.
Yeah, that AIDS class was just weird. I think they have something like 12 million locked into all their one picks, like $7 million to Kurtz, and then you have $3 million to Tommy White and $2 million to Gage Jump. Like that's just for me. I talked about this to somebody today. Like it was just weird how they used their money. I feel like there's a lot to be desired there left on the table, and going over slot with two college guys who are juniors, and I don't know how well they project. Like it's just very weird for me.
Yeah, some of the stuff that organization does is always weird to me. So I agree. Yeah, that's 12 mil to those first three guys is a lot to lock up. Again, above slot on both your second and comp pick B. Little alarming and questionable, but what can you do? I'm not an Oakland fan, so shout out JP. Real quick, jumps over here now. Let's say if you were in a dynasty draft. We'll go dynasty, more of a dynasty aspect first, and then if you were actually the Cleveland Guardians. So from a dynasty aspect, and you're in your first year player draft, who is someone that you would take as your 1-1? And would it be the same as if you were an MLB GM?
It might be a little bit different, honestly, because I kind of look at it. The biggest fit for me in the top 5 is Charlie Condon to the Rockies, because that's an organization that's kind of gotten better with their development program over the past couple of years. They've learned how to use their arms in the lower levels. Like Dolander's turned into a fantastic high A pitcher. I think he just got promoted today to Double A. So him, Sean Sullivan, and I think they've done a good job of bats too. Like Jordan Beck's already made his debut. Sterling Thompson's getting his way up there. And I think with Condon, like there are some questions with breaking balls. He does chase a bit. There's some swing and miss there. But you're looking at a guy that CJ Cron maybe? CJ Cron was peppering that concourse in left field repeatedly during his time there, and he turned in a pretty nice, MLB career
for sure.
For a guy that was a first rounder in like 2009 or something like that. So I like the fit there. If I'm dynasty, maybe him 1-1, but I think you're weighing him and Bazzana at 1. And I personally, for me, I'd go Bazzana. I just think it's a safer bet. There's a ton of contact. There's limited upside defensively. He might be able to get you some good stolen bases on the dynasty side. So it's a power speed kind of threat, but it's just the most complete profile in the entire draft class. It would be 1-1 for me on both sides.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I'm team Bazzana. Right. Everyone right now is either Condon or Bazzana, and I'm in that team Bazzana. I feel like when you get a chance of getting like that 5-tool player in a dynasty aspect, I'm going to go with Bazzana over Condon. What say you, Nick?
Yeah, this draft in general, all the mild research I've already done is not something that I wouldn't be excited to have the first pick. I mean, granted, like you might have like an international guy, but like just like this class in general, I feel like anybody in the top 10 could really get you the same type of value a year from then. Because I'm not a draft to hold guy. I'm a draft to trade guy. So I think just like value-wise, and I know I'm going to sound like a homer, but I think this time next year, the Red Sox could have the best player in the draft.
Okay, real quick before we get to that. So you're saying that if you were Cleveland, you would stick with Bazzana?
Yes,
Tyler?
yeah. But like dynasty wise, I could probably make an argument for like 6 guys to pick 1-1 just because like it's just kind of all the same.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be a show. We got to before we got a couple other questions here. It wouldn't be a show without some Homer, and these were courtesy of Nick. I had nothing to do with these questions. But what do you have any? I don't know if you comp players or not, but do you have a Braden Montgomery comp?
So I will admittedly say I'm not the greatest with comps.
No one is.
Finding one for Braden was a bit tough. I seen somebody posted like Jose Guillen somewhere, and I think that's like a very upper echelon kind of comp because they have similar arms. Like Braden Montgomery's arm is going to be a 70, maybe even 80 in right field, and Guillen was definitely that kind of player, and he also has the power to match what Guillen did. Guillen had 20 home runs in like 5 seasons of the 14 that he played, so it's a pretty good comp to put out there, but it's really best case scenario on that one. And for me, like Braden's going to probably have to ditch switch hitting rather. Sorry.
Yes.
Mainly because when you look at the splits between the lefty and the righty splits are much, much better. There's a consistent bat path. It's similar bat speed from both sides, but Montgomery just really struggled with bat the ball's heels from the right side. It's a wonky swing. I think he's definitely going to have to be a lefty moving forward. And just finding a comp for that, I was not able to find one, admittedly.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, like Guillen, best case scenario. Behind that,
it's Ken Griffey, Tyler.
Ken Griffey. Okay, I'm saving the Ken Griffey comps for AJ Gracia in 2026. So I've still got a couple years for that one.
I just thought of a off the cuff question here. This is no right or wrong answer, but with so many, in this draft, so many two-way players being drafted, and obviously the Ohtani phase and craze. Do you ever see a spot or an era where MLB will accept the two-way player, or do you think it's just something that's just never going to happen?
I think right now, and I'm just using this as like a comparison, like Cagliano was comped to Ohtani a lot during college.
Yep.
But I thought that was doing it the service to Cagliano himself because Ohtani is just the greatest baseball player in the world. And I don't think people weigh that enough into comparing that Ohtani to Cagliano because of the fact that Cagliano's dominating at the college level. Cagliano's pitching was not very good this year. He came out strong, but his velocity really dipped, especially in the College World Series. The command was never there. But the bat just took a step forward this year, and I think I saw the Royals are going to let him be a bat only now.
Okay.
And then reevaluate their pitching side of things on that one. I just think at the end of the day, if you get a two-way guy, they really, really have to perform. And there's just nobody in the minors right now, or even at the amateur level, that really stands out on that level like Ohtani does. I just think it's more of a rarity than it is anything else. Unless there's a lot of kids that really develop on both sides as they grow older, even like some teenagers now, I just don't see the league formatting differently compared to what we already have now.
Yeah, no, I love the flag plant of Ohtani being the best in the world because I couldn't agree more. It doesn't get enough credit, and I would love to see it, but I think you're right. I think it's more of a unicorn thing. It's a once in a lifetime generational talent, and even he can't even stay healthy on the pitcher side. So I don't know if we'll ever see. Maybe when my kids, maybe then they'll be all two-way players. But yeah,
when everybody turns into a two-way player, I will eat my shorts. Admittedly.
All right, one more question here real quick. Conrad Carson ceiling.
Yeah, I think so. With Cason, I saw him a couple times last summer, and is a two-way guy with probably more upside as a pitcher, and I think that's how he got drafted anyways, is as a pitcher. The fastball has been up to 98 this spring. There's a lot of velocity behind it. He'll sit 94, 98, but I think it might just be a relief profile overall. There's not really a good breaking ball in there, and the changeup's kind of firm. If anything, I can see him being a late inning reliever at his best, but as a starter, I just don't really see it right now unless there's a lot of focus on getting the delivery less efforty and more projection on the breaking ball and the changeup. I just think right now it's a fastball only kind of guy with the raw tools to make everything work, but until you develop the secondaries, I don't really see much value more than an 8th inning or maybe even a 9th inning guy if everything works out.
Sounds good to me.
I'll say, does that satisfy your needs,
Yeah,
your question there, Nick?
The Sox need a closer in like 5 years, and that'll be him.
The Kenley Jansen replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can't be all Sox talk here. We got a little bit of Cam Smith love here for you.
I absolutely love Cam Smith. Let me tell you that. I think the biggest thing for Cam Smith is the Cubs really do need to prioritize him lifting the ball more. He had one of the lower launch angles this year. It's a flatter bat path, but there's a ton of bat speed, a ton of power. I think personally he's going to be a third baseman long term. There's some questions on the handwork because I think it's a bit stiff, but he moves fluidly at a position, and I think he sticks there long term. But if you're looking for a guy with built like a linebacker, going to have a ton of power if he starts lifting the ball more, Cam Smith's your guy. I think it's a very good value pick for what the Cubs got at 14. And like I said, if you get him to lift the ball more, you're looking at a guy with 20 plus home runs at the next level. I think there's a lot to like there.
Yeah. Love
Agreed.
it. We don't have a third baseman, so Chris Morel's dead to me. But before we get out of here, man, we got to give you one last question here. Of all the picks and all your draft, studying here and research, give me one late round sleeper that everyone's talking about in 2020 for is like a top prospect in 2025.
Ooh, so it's not necessarily too deep. I'm going like a 6th round pick here.
Yeah, it's fine.
And it's going to pain both me and Nick here because it's a Yankees pick. But Griffin Herring out of LSU in the 6th round is a great value, in my opinion. I saw him this year. The slider is one of the best in the country. I think he still needs a bit more fastball velocity, but he's done a good job out of the bullpen for LSU, and I think he starts at next level. And Yankees organization has done a fantastic job with developing arms recently. They've also been really, really good at developing breaking balls too, and having that kind of arm in your organization to where he could be mid 90s next year, could be throwing a ton of strikes with a good changeup and a really good breaking ball. There's a lot of like for it on my end. And I think he'll probably be one of the guys we talk about a lot in the next year or two.
Love it, Taylor. Love it. Love everything you brought here tonight. It's been super informative. Why don't you go and give a minute and tell people where you can find you again one more time before you get out of here?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me specifically at Tyler Jennings 24 on Twitter, X, or whatever we call it now. And we can follow all of our stuff draft-wise, Dynasty-wise, anything like that at Prospects Live. For our end, we're going to be focusing a lot on the 25 class. So we already got the college list out. We'll put the prep class out here in the next couple of weeks. And then I think I'll just be taking a bit of a break. It's been, we've been on the road a lot.
A much deserved break.
Can't wait to hit the links and hopefully improve my golf score. But once we get the prep list out, it'll probably be a break until fall ball, and then we'll be back on the road again. So excited for what the 25 class has to offer.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks a lot again for joining. Nick, thanks for joining again. Enjoy Italy. I'll be thinking.
Can we do a deadline show next week?
You're around next week?
Yeah. We leave a week from Saturday.
All right, yeah, we'll talk about it.
All right, sweet. All right, boys.
All right, Tyler, thanks. We'll talk soon.
Yep. Thank you, guys.